This episode, I believe, is going to truly blow everybody's minds. I have on the podcast Erin Mayhew, who is the founder of Backcountry Foodie, and she basically was a registered dietitian before owning her own business, which essentially means that she knows everything that you need to be bringing with you on your backpacking trips in terms of food to have the best performance possible. Now, not only with hiking, but this also goes for trail running, ultra running, anything that you're doing in the outdoors, she's going to be going over. So we're going to be going over various aspects of nutrition and meal planning for hikers, everything from the importance of and the difference of complex carbs versus simple carbs, and also why you need protein, why it's so critical in the backcountry, as well as some of the harmful effects of simple high sugar foods, but then also the effect of inflammation on the body, which I think might surprise you. We're also going to go over some of the best foods to pack in terms of getting the best bang for your buck as a complete food with all of your macros in it, but also making sure that it's going to be light enough, but also getting the macros at the same time. Hopefully that made sense. I'm just going off the cuff here with this episode, but this was, I have made so many Instagram reel clips from this episode, more so than any episode I have created in the past. So that should just tell you that there was a lot of really, really good, helpful information for you, especially if you're somebody that is somebody that gets really bonky or really hangry on your hikes. You're going to love this episode. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome back to the Peanut Butter and Mountains podcast, everybody. Super stoked for today's episode. As a kind of a food nerd myself, we have the pleasure of hosting Erin Owen Mayhew. She is a dietitian turned entrepreneur centered around backpacking foods and nutrition. And so in 2017, she actually founded Backcountry Foodie, which is a platform dedicated to revolutionizing how hikers approach their nutrition on the trail, which is, extremely, extremely important, especially when you're doing these long days on the trail, right? You got to have that nutrition. So from what I can see, Erin has extremely valuable advice for long distance hikers or just weekend backpackers as well, aiming for, sustained energy levels and to eat healthier on trail. So welcome to the podcast, Erin. So stoked to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You bet. So, kind of one of the things that I was talking to you a little bit before was one of my biggest qualms with through hiking and long distance hiking is just eating unhealthy foods for an extended period of time. And so, with your background as a dietitian, what is it that hikers are missing from their meals and their drinks the most that would really, really benefit them to bring back into their diet, especially when they're on trail?
I think a lot of it is, and actually this is how Backcountry Foodie got started, is that I was so concerned about eating foods that I didn't normally eat at home for long distance.
Right.
And as a trail runner at the time, so I knew my body and how it fueled and how I needed food to feel good and that kind of thing. Because a lot of the easy foods to buy when you're through hiking are really high sugary foods.
Right.
And those are going to metabolize super quick, and which is fine when you need a quick boost to get up and over a mountain. But once you get up and over, you're going to crash. And then you've got that next climb. So then you have to fuel up again on sensible sugars. Then you're going to crash again. So I think actually one of the simple things that people don't think about is just complex carbs, like adding in some fiber to slow down that absorption of the sugars and that kind of thing. And then also a lot of the inexpensive foods don't have a lot of protein in them because they're highly processed. So I think at the end of the day, adding in some extra protein is really going to make a big difference in how you recover. Especially I'm getting older. So I've noticed in the last 5 years, it makes a huge difference in how I eat. I can't eat like I used to when I was 20. I don't recover like I used to. So I think that's another thing that people may not pay as much attention to, because at home it's easy to get plenty of protein, when you're going to the grocery and that kind of thing. Just hiking foods, unless you're paying attention to it, you don't necessarily get as much in your diet as you might think you need.
Gosh, that's such a good point, because especially when you're hiking too, you're not sleeping that well usually. Not extremely well, like you would be on your bed here, right?
Right.
And so having that protein for an additional recovery, and then if you're already not getting that much protein anyway because you're eating processed foods and you're not getting good sleep, you wake up in the morning and that's probably why you kind of feel trash still.
You got hiker hobble.
Hiker hobble. I like that. That's
hiker
so
hobble
true.
when you hobble out of your tent in the morning. That's hiker hobble.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's actually what I like when I teach in some of my classes is I truly believe backpacking is a sport. I like to think of it as a sport because I don't think a lot of backpackers think of themselves as athletes. what other sport do you carry 20 pounds or more on your back? You're covering like thousands of feet of elevation in the same day. You're out there in rain, sleet, snow, mud, you're miserable. Like you said, you're not sleeping well. You're doing this
Yeah.
day after day. I mean, I think we're pretty awesome athletes, but a
Yeah.
lot of us, unless you change your mindset around that, we don't fuel our bodies like an athlete. So like an Ironman triathlete, they would never eat a bunch of sugary, well, they eat high performance sugary foods, but they're going to really fine tune what they eat. They're not going to just kind of eat on a whim because they know what they need to be able to function.
Actually, one of the things that you said that I found interesting was, you eat some sugar before you get up to the mountain or whatever, and then you coming down, you're bonking, and then you got to do it again, and you got to do it again. One of the things that I've always found interesting was when people eat their lunch at the summit, right? And I'm thinking like, would it be smarter to actually eat maybe some of your lunch before you actually do the climb up to the mountain? Number one, you're lessening some of the food you're carrying. Number two, yeah, right. Okay, sweet. Yeah, and then number two, like you're putting
Right.
that fuel into your body. Like what
Right.
are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, just depending on the time of the day when it happens. But yes, if you're coming upon lunch soon, then yeah, go ahead and eat your lunch, fuel your body up, lighten your load when you get to the top.
Right.
And then if you still want to chill, have a snack or something or hang out up there at the top.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, at least have some kind of a snack. If it's been several hours since you last ate before you do a climb, that's just going to make it so much better. Because, I mean, you're just going to get tired and tired. And then you get up there to eat lunch. You're so pooped and miserable and cranky because you're so hungry. Then
Right.
you actually, you don't enjoy your lunch as much because you're in a bad mood. At least I get very hangry. I'm not a very nice person to be around when I'm hungry. So it's better off to kind of prevent that from happening in the first place. So.
Angry.
Yeah.
That term. That resonates with me as well. What is happening when we are getting hangry? What's happening in the body?
So essentially, you've burned through your carb stores, and a lot of people are afraid of carbohydrates, but for backpacking purposes, they're super important to have in your body. And what hangry is you're hitting the wall, you're bonking, your glycogen's depleted. So there's only so much your body can actually store at a time. And believe it or not, you can run through all of that energy within 3 hours.
Wow.
It doesn't take long if you're doing a super intense alpine climb where you're using ropes and all those, you could burn through it in an hour if you're not fueling well enough. So a lot of people, I think that's what happens. Especially when I first started backpacking, I didn't know any different. I was a clinical dietitian at the time, so my field of nutrition was totally different. I just thought it sucked to backpack. I just thought you're cranky all the time. I just thought that was part of it. It wasn't until I really started thinking about okay, I figured out my tent. I figured out all these other things, but I'm still cranky. What's going on? Oh, food. My body's hungry. That's why I'm sore. That's why I'm not recovering. And then as soon as, you pay attention to food, that whole variable goes away and your experience on the trail is just that much better because you're in a good mood because your body's happy.
Oh, God. My audience is going to love this. This is such good content right here. This is such great content because you're totally right. I mean, a lot of people think that you kind of have to suffer when you're backpacking, but it doesn't have to be like that, especially when especially you can eat. Well, we'll get into this a little bit later, but some of the stuff on your site, that you will provide hikers with food. I mean, that food can be really good on trail, and that's a huge morale boost just in and of itself, just having good tasting food, but also the energy levels that you also gain from it as well, and the recovery and all that stuff. Yeah. One thing that I'm curious about too, we jam a lot of sugar when we're backpacking, right? You're kind of talking about that. There's a lot of, M&Ms to Snickers bars, which Snicker bars are like rocket fuel.
I'm okay with Snickers bars. They have carbs, protein, and fat in them. So they have all the big groups.
It's kind of like a complete little meal snack there.
Actually, that's what I call a combination food. That's one of my key things for meal planning is eating combination foods, is that you can actually reduce your food weight carried by eating carbs, protein, and fat in every single bite of your food. And then if you do that, then you eat less because it's all there all at one time. So that's kind of my secret weapon that's why I call it ultralight meal planning, is that get everything as condensed as possible, as nutritious as possible, and that's less weight you have to carry. And the faster you're up and over that mountain and, and you're in camp and hanging out. So
I love that. What are some other foods that come to mind hit that category?
My favorite, if people listen to any of my other episodes or my website, is quinoa. Nobody thinks about quinoa when you're on trail, but it has carbs, protein, and fat in every single gram of the bite. And it's lightweight. It doesn't take up space. It's easy. You can either make it at home yourself and dry it, or you can buy it already pre-dried. It's super easy to do. It cold soaks, it cooks. So there's just so many variables that you can do to it. And then you just get so much nutrition and it's filling. because there's fiber in there. So you're going to get those carbs, but then you're not going to crash as if you were to have like some ramen that has the carbs, but not the extra nutrition in it that's going to last as long. So that's kind of my powerhouse backpacking food.
Wow. Ooh, that's a good one. That is great.
It has everything you need, and it's super easy.
Yeah. That's going to be an Instagram clip right there. That was awesome. One of them that actually comes to mind for me too is, and I would love to see what you think about it, but Nutella. But it probably don't have the fiber, huh?
No, that's one of my happy foods. So it's one of my I always pack a happy food, and Nutella makes me happy. So it's one of those times if the trail really, really sucks, pull out the happy food, and it's gonna put a smile on my face. But yeah, it has the fat, it has some sugar, and it has like a lot of those things in it. So yeah, actually, I sell it in our shop. I have a bunch of those little Nutella packets right behind.
I saw that you would sell them in like a very small case,
tiny,
which is awesome. Yeah, perfect. It's funny you say that it's your happy food. We were doing the Wind River High Route a couple years ago, and we were just getting beat down. And so we had a jar of Nutella, and we would refer to it as little dopamine hits. We just like take little dopamine hits out of the jar. It was just like, oh, this is, it was so great. It was so great, but that's awesome. Well, cool. So I guess, so back to one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, so with sugar, right? Inflammation comes from sugar, especially when you're eating it in the real world and you're not maybe exercising it off, right? What is there a difference between us eating sugar, processed sugar, and that type of stuff in the real world versus when we are actually using it as glucose on the trail? Like, is there as much inflammation? Does it cause as much inflammation, or how does it work?
That's actually the key point that you just said, is that you are using it when you're on the trail. So when you're hiking, you're quickly burning through all that. So you're not sitting around and letting it get, your body's getting inflamed for a different reason. You're getting inflamed because you're physically active. So you're not sitting around eating the sugar that's not getting digested. It's getting stored and, all those extra calories and that kind of thing. So I'm not afraid of sugar when I'm backpacking because I know it's for a purpose. And I know I don't like doing only sugar. So there's a time and place for everything. Is kind of the way I look at it, is that like sugar has a reason. So if I need that quick energy source to get going, then I will use it for things. But I'm not going to only eat sugar when I'm on trail because you're burning the calories. A lot of people you can eat whatever you want when you're backpacking because you're burning the calories, but the calories matter, the type of calories. So that's kind of where I feel about that. I'm not worried about it on trail, but at home, yes, it's a totally different story.
Got you. Okay. That's good to know. Are you mostly prioritizing like fats and carbs on trail, or what does
everything.
That look like for you?
For me, like I was saying, everything has its purpose. The complex carbs are providing you that energy to keep your muscles happy. The protein and keeping your brain happy too. The glucose keeping your brain happy. The hot sugars, because you need those to process in your brain. And then fats, the slow burning fuel. So it's kind of that just kind of keeps your energy going through time. And then again, like we talked about, the protein is recovering at the end of the day too. So everything has a reason for why you're going to be consuming it.
I love this. When you say complex versus simple carbs, what's the difference there?
Complex carbs provide nutrition. Simple simple carbs do not. They're just calories. So complex carbs have vitamins and minerals and fiber, and they're slow digesting, that kind of thing. Simple sugars, simple carbs are literally just cane sugar, brown sugar, honey, molasses, those kind of things. They're just a sugar source. There's no extra nutrition provided in there. You're not getting vitamins and minerals from them.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. What is your, walk me through maybe a day of hiking with you. Say we're backpacking. What's your go-to breakfast, your snacks maybe in between lunch, snacks in between that, and then dinner. What's that look like for you?
So and I teach this too, my day really depends on whatever the trip's going to be. So no trip's the same, because sometimes you get to sleep in late. Other times you're getting up at 3:00 in the morning for a summit attempt. So if I'm getting up early, I'm probably going to have maybe one of my meal replacement shakes, because it's just add water, shake down the hatch, and off we go. I'm not having to spend a lot of time. I like to sleep until the last second. Right. I don't want to be there cooking breakfast for 20 minutes. Kind of thing.
It's hard to eat in that, or if you're doing an alpine start. Sorry to interrupt you, but when you I have found it. You wake up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Dude, I'm eating oatmeal. I can't do it at
Right.
that early of a
Yeah.
time. And the meal replacement, anything like that has been so much better for
Just
me.
add water, shake down the hatch, you're done. Like literally that's all it
Yeah.
is. So that
Right.
kind of day I would do something like that. If it's a more like an overnight easy weekend trip, I might actually cook something on the stove and have a nice breakfast. So just kind of depends on the morning what I'm doing. Snacks, I always snack at least every hour and a half, no more than 2 hours, because I know myself that well that and my husband knows me that well now too, that I
Yeah.
actually start stumbling. It's kind of the key. I guess my body's notification to say like, you need to eat. And I've fallen down actually a couple times, and I ended up in the emergency room getting stitches one time because I fell off the side of the mountain into a tree and had a tree limb jammed into my leg.
Whoa.
Yeah, I have scars to remind me like, you need to remember to
Yeah.
eat.
You are taking bonking to a whole new
Right.
level right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get, like I said, I'm hangry, so my husband's kind of like, you should probably snack. You're getting a little grouchy. So yeah, at least every hour and a half to 2 hours snacking. Lunch, it's usually, I like to eat a real lunch. I'm not a snacker kind of lunch person, so it's usually, I love DIY hummus, just hummus mix. You add some water, olive oil, some Parmesan cheese or something to it with some pretzels or pita chips or something. I love doing bean dips for lunch. So something that's just add water, stir, really quick kind of stuff. Then again, keep snacking every hour and a half to 2 hours till dinner time. And then dinner, I usually eat like a real meal. I love hot meals for dinner. We can go into the cold soak thing if you want to sometime. But I tried cold soaking for a whole through hike, the Oregon Coast Trail, and I'll never do it again. It was horrible. I know people love it, but it's just not something I do. So
Right.
I really enjoy a hot dinner, and that could be any number of things. And a pasta dish. What do I eat? I've got so many things. Beans and chips. I don't know. I eat all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, it's typically a hot meal for dinner.
And probably prioritizing some protein in that last
Yeah, I
meal,
usually
too,
at least
probably.
20 grams of protein is what I do for dinner.
Okay. Now, how does that change in different climates?
Yes.
Like let's say altitude or cold weather.
So altitude, just physically standing at altitude, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, is just the energy your body uses just to breathe, and your heart pumping and that kind of thing can increase by 30% just by standing still. So it's one of the kind of things I like to tease about. Is like, I wish I lived at altitude. I could lose a few pounds just by standing there because my energy expenditure is up. But yeah, so you need to increase your calories that you pack just for being at altitude. When you stay at altitude, though. So a lot of people, you might hit up a peak at 12,000 feet kind of thing, but then you're going back down below 8,000. So that doesn't count as much. If you're actually at sustained altitude, then you're going to want to increase your calories just for that reason alone.
Interesting.
And then in cold weather, you're going to want to increase calories, not because the weather itself makes you cold, but it's all the other variables that change. When cold weather, you're typically wearing more clothes, so you weigh more. So you're typically probably out in the snow wearing snowshoes or skis or something. You're working hard. You're typically shivering. At least I do when I stop and take a break. You start shivering and that kind of thing. So you can actually burn 400 calories an hour from shivering. So that's kind of another one of those things that if you ever get into a really dire situation, you're just like doing this for a long time, like make sure you have a backup plan of food because you're just going to get in that much more trouble if you get into that kind of situation. So yeah, so calories increase in cold because of all those other things that are going on, not necessarily just the temperature.
As if, doing stuff in the cold didn't suck enough. It's like, boiling water and like doing all that type of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you actually have to pack more food too.
You have to pack more food, which I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like summer is a totally different ballgame from winter hikes. They're needed to be treated differently.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Now, if you are, let's say you are a total beginner backpacker listening to this podcast and you're like, dude, that sounds great, but I have no freaking clue what I don't know how many calories I need to bring during the day. And, I don't know if I'm packing too much for this first ever trip that I'm going on or if I'm packing too little. How would you recommend that they go about figuring that out for themselves?
The answer is we spent an entire year making a calorie calculator that does all of that for you because of that very question. I was noticing over and over again my coaching customers coming to me not knowing how to figure out the calories. And the way to do it without a calculator is to look at a minimum, look at what you're eating at home and figure out what like a baseline is. And then you have to start adding on calories on top of that based on like how heavy is your pack? How many miles are you doing? Are you doing a lot of elevation change? All those things. So it just keeps getting more and more complicated.
Right.
which our calculator does all of those variables for you. We literally spent an entire year reading all the
Wow.
research. Yeah, literally an entire year building this thing. I read all the research. We've got all the algorithms that the Olympic athletes are using, professional teams are using, and we blended it all together to make like this hiker calculator. It's on our website. It's free. And I think it has 15 variables in it. It does.
Wow.
I mean, your gender, your age, how much you weigh, your height, it does everything. Are you in
That's
snow?
so
Are you
cool.
in the dirt? Is it an overnight trip? And that's the thing too, as a lot of the calorie calculators currently out there calculate how many calories you're actually burning during that hiking period of time, but you're still burning calories the rest of the day. So a lot of people are underestimating their needs because you're burning calories when you're sleeping. You're burning calories when you're sitting around in camp. So they're underpacking. And I think that's part of that where I'm hungry all the time. Like I'm cranky, I mean, if we fix that one variable, then I think people's enjoyment of their trips is going to be that much better.
Ooh. So helpful. So on the Backcountry Foodie website, which is backcountryfoodie.com.
.com.
Okay, you can find that calculator. So
It's
everybody
on
that's
the header,
listening,
it says calorie calculator. It's right there.
ooh, good stuff. That would be very, very helpful for people. And I'm sure you're familiar with the term hiker hunger.
Oh, yes.
What's going on there? Is it you're just your body's just needing more nutrition, more foods? Like what's going on with that?
That's just your body isn't keeping up with I guess your input is not keeping up with your body's output, your energy needs, that your body is saying like, feed me, feed me, feed me. Like I need more and more and more. Because if you do start playing around with the calculator, that's the biggest thing that people notice. They're like, holy smokes. Like I didn't know I was needing to eat that much food. I'm like, your body needs a lot of energy. And once you actually start fueling it the way it needs to be fueled, that is going to diminish significantly. I've been aware now, like I know exactly what I need for different kinds of trips, that I don't have hiker hunger anymore because I know what my body needs to get to that point. But essentially that's what it is your body's missing something, whether it's carbs, protein, fat, vitamins, it's missing something and it's telling you like, feed me and feed me now as much as possible.
Yeah. So like I said, in real life, I'm super healthy, right? And one of the things is I try to pack as much as healthy as I can in quotations, right? But I also bring in like a multivitamin and maybe fish oils and stuff like that. Do you have any like experience with that as a dietitian of maybe, hey, this is a supplement maybe you should be taking on the trail if you're going to bring anything at all? What would be maybe one of those?
I do. I personally just take a multivitamin myself when I'm doing my long distance trips. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks for deficiencies to occur. So if you're just going on a weekend trip, not a big deal. But if you are going to be through hiking, it's something to consider. The primary reason is that just the processing of backpacking food, dehydrating food reduces the vitamins by 50%, just the processing. Wow. So, I mean, even though you're choosing some of these really awesome brands that are making really healthy foods, it's not their fault that the vitamins are down. It's just the way the food is processed. So unless you're using freeze-dried, it actually retains 97% of the vitamins. So if you tend to buy more freeze-dried foods, you're going to get more of your vitamins that way.
Freeze-dried, okay.
Yeah, so just the processing, it doesn't lose the vitamins the same way. It's just how the food is made. But if you want to, I don't like to put all that stress on myself to worry about that. So I'd rather use my food for carbs and protein and fat, like the macronutrients, and then just take a vitamin to get the micro. So then I'm not stressing about like, I need an extra cup of dried apple today to get my vitamins. I need an extra orange or this kind of thing to get my vitamin C. That I have a lot of other things to worry about on trails. So just if I could just take a vitamin, then that kind of takes one thing off my list of things that I have to worry about.
I really like that. Yeah, so you're more focusing on, okay, here's the macronutrients that I need to power my body from A to B. I'm going to take the multivitamin just to get those micronutrients and all that other stuff, but otherwise I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't worry about those just because it takes so much more volume of food, and that's too. Is that because if you're losing 50% of those vitamins, you have to eat that much more food to make up the difference, which now means your backpack is that much bigger. Your weight of the food's more and all that kind of thing versus like just take a little multivitamin. It's easy and it's going to cover your bases.
That's a hack right there. Heck yeah. Now, what if somebody is dehydrating food at their house, right? Is that still making it lose all the... Really?
Yeah, it's the exposure to extended heat. So the water-soluble vitamins degrade in heat and light and that kind of thing. So there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the processing of what happens. So it's the unfortunate part about backpacking food.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that's good to know. That kind of deters me from buying my own dehydrator. Because I was like, I kind of want to be healthier on trail, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, well, that helps. Yeah. No, I like the macro concept on that. That's really cool. Is there, kind of going off of that, is there any common misconceptions that you come across, like as far as nutrition goes, that that come up in the backpacking world that you can think of? Is there anything like, there's kind of like maybe a dogma or a way of thinking with something that maybe you're like, you know what, maybe actually it's maybe this. Is there anything like that?
Well, the keto backpackers is that
Hmm.
I think people can follow keto in the front country really successfully. But once you get into the backcountry, your body's needs change. And you really do need carbs when you're in the backcountry. I've done a lot of research on it. You can keto backpack, but you have to do it at a very low intensity. Your body works well low intensity on fat. But as soon as you get the more high intensity things, your body's going to switch back over to wanting those carbs. And I think you're just going
I
to feel
see.
so much better if you have some of those carbs for that
Okay.
purpose. So depending on your hiking style, if you are kind of a more like you're out for an easy weekend or if
Hmm.
even just a long distance trip, if it's kind of an easier trip, then you could still keto backpack. But that's kind of where I feel strongly about needing those extra carbs for things
Yeah.
that as soon as your heart rate goes up, then like your body switches up
Got you. To preferring the glucose over
for
whatever
fat.
fats
Yeah.
or yeah. Okay. Got you. No, it's good to know. I know it's like that might be one thing that I actually so like when I backpack, one of my snacks is trail mix, right? And I kind of almost think that that might be a decently complete because you got your fats, you
Mhm.
got your carbs. Like if you mix in maybe some like I don't know, do raisins have fiber?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like raisins, and then that's usually all I actually do is like peanuts and
Yeah,
raisins.
trail
Actually,
mix,
it's
you
pretty
can make
boring.
trail mix whatever you want it to be. So it could easily be like a
Yeah.
combo food, combination food.
Right. Okay. One of those combo foods. Okay. Awesome. Man, this is fascinating. I love all this stuff. This is going to be so great for my audience to listen to. I hope everybody that's going to be listening in the future is going to be like, they're having their minds blown because this is like super important stuff. Like like literally being hangry can ruin a trip.
It
If
totally
you
ruins
or
a
if
trip.
you're with someone and then you're having a conversation with them and you're hangry, you don't know what you're gonna, you might say something you'll regret when you're
Right.
hangry, right? It's like,
Right. Fall off
yeah,
the side of the mountain and end up in the emergency room and your trip's cut
totally,
short because of something stupid,
totally,
you know?
totally, yeah,
Yeah.
no. So is that what was it that actually inspired you to create Backcountry Foodie and educating people on this and then also selling some of the products that can help people out when they're on the trail? Like what was the thing behind that?
Well, it all just started as, I guess, a passion project. It was just me feeding myself for the PCT in 2017, and then it just took off. What's kind of funny is back then, I didn't know anything about Instagram. I didn't have an Instagram account, and I was mentoring students, and they're like, Aaron, you really need to get an Instagram account. I'm like, well, sure, like set it up. You can post for me and that kind of thing. So that's how it all took off. It's just my students were posting kind of what I was doing. Just year after year, it's just grown and grown and grown. And we were talking before we started is every year I've kind of pivoted based on what hikers' needs are, what my trail needs have been, kind of what's happened in my life, what's happening in the world.
Yeah,
So it's just kind of evolved with time that it went from just recipes to a cookbook to an online meal planning platform to coaching to now we have a resupply service where I do all the work for everybody. And then just like last week, we launched our resupply shop. So now you can actually get all the foods you need that aren't available in small grocery stores when you're through hiking in our shop and have it delivered directly to the post office or hostel, wherever you're going. Because I've through hiked several times. So I know exactly what needs to be on the labels and all that kind of thing.
right, right.
So we just built upon foodie every year.
Unreal. Well, that we were talking before, and the resupply concept that you guys do, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
That would be, and I can see that being extremely helpful for somebody that's on trail because resupplying is usually one of the more kind of stressful and kind of
Mhm.
time consuming things, especially when you're trying to do a 0 day
Right.
and you just want to chillax
Exactly.
in your hotel. But you're like, oh no, I actually have to go walk around town
Right.
and go find this and that and count calories maybe and this and that. So tell me a little bit about your resupply service and how that has been helping hikers along the trail.
So essentially, it's exactly what you just said. It's like when I've always had resupply boxes for my trips because of that very reason. When I'm doing a zero, I want a zero. Like I want to
Hmm.
not hike another 3 miles that day running around town kind of thing. So essentially, hiker, it's fully customizable. You can, if I can buy it, you can have it essentially. So if you have really special diet needs that you're not going to be able to get on trail, if I can find the food or make the food, that kind of thing, then you can have it. And it's also been super helpful for international hikers that don't have a support person here
Interesting.
in the States. So I take care of gear too. So they ship me all their gear. So especially like the PCT, for example, they'll start out with summer gear for the desert. And then when it comes to the
Right.
Sierras, we swap out gear. I send them their winter. They send their summer back to me. Get out of the Sierras, we swap gear again. I also can order shoes. I order new socks, all that kind of, it's all done by Garmin or whatever your satellite messenger is.
Unreal.
They'll be like, they're sitting in camp like, Aaron, I just ripped my pants. Can you order me a new pair of pants? Sure. I order them up, send them out.
No
Then
way.
they're at the next town when you get there.
Ah.
Because I can send to post offices. Amazon ships to UPS. So they can't send things to post offices. So that's another way that I
Two
know
great
all those kind of
points.
ins and outs of things. I bounce
Wow.
boxes for people. So I'll get a message here and I'm going faster or slower. Can you bounce my box? Sure. I get on with the phone, call the post office. My hiker's not going to get there. And then we send it to the next place. Let's see what else. Oh, and I have a hiker this past year season, needed daily contact lenses. So that kind of thing. He's like, I need somebody just to ship me my contacts. So I did that. And then I had another hiker that was on like a very distinct deadline. I have 100 days. I need you to be like, we got to be on time every single box. So he was able to finish his trip because he'd go into town, pick it up, keep going, go into
Unreal.
town, pick it up, keep going, that kind of thing. There was none of this lag for him. So he was able to stay on his deadline. So it's that kind of thing that I do.
Huh.
Yeah.
That
I'm a trail
that
mom.
I was just gonna say that. I
Yeah.
was literally just gonna say that. You were like the ultimate trail mom, though. Like the ultimate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when these people finish, they have to be so grateful for the help that you provided, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I've actually, quite a few of mine have come to me because they have a history of losing, especially petite women losing a lot of weight, is that they know, like, because I made my food for them this year. They're like, Aaron, I finished, I didn't lose weight, like, I wasn't hungry, like, I
Wow.
wasn't stressed, all these, essentially, like, you place an order, and then I make all the magic happen, and then it just shows up. So it's stress-free on the hiker's end. So, yeah.
A little stressful for you, though, I imagine.
I love it. I believe it or not, I love making hiker boxes. For the
Awesome.
people that are watching, that's what's behind me. This is my shipping station.
There it is.
So,
Yeah. Real. So, do you have people working for you, or how are you doing this? Like, how are you managing this all?
Good question. One of my least favorite things to do is writing. So I have a dietitian that does all the writing for me. So she does all my newsletters, blog posts, and she's also a coach. So she does nutrition coaching for me. Her name's Amelia. She's been with me for probably 2 years now, if not longer. I have a business operations manager, Micah, who does all the membership side of things. We've kind of split the business now into membership and then the shop and the resupply in a separate kind of side of the business. So he manages all the membership platform things. And then I'm on the other side. So now I get to spend my time in the kitchen, which is where I'm happy, instead of behind the computer doing text. So I have somebody managing all the techie kind of thing.
So are you actually making the like freeze dried meals and stuff, or how's that working?
As of this week, last week I had my commercial food license. So I'm now in a commercial kitchen making our food and selling it nationwide.
No way.
Yeah, just like I'm going in probably Friday as my first day in the kitchen. I've been a cottage food company for this past season just as a try it out to see how it would go. And I made 1,600 meals for 10 hikers in 6 months. It was a lot of food.
Oh my gosh.
I quickly realized I need a commercial kitchen. So yeah.
Yeah. Holy. Okay. So
and I'm hiring helpers for that. I can't do all that by myself. So
I was gonna say, yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, through hiking season is mostly gonna be in the summer. You know, a lot of the hiking season. So what is your winter like right now? We're getting into winter. Like, what does that look like? Are you prepping a ton of food, batching all that food together? Like, what's your operations look like now?
It's kind of it's definitely a lull in the year. October, November is our slowest time of the year. So this is kind of our project time. So this is when we get the website cleaned up. We get blog posts written. We get all these other kind of stuff done.
Love it.
So then that way, when the season starts up again, then all those things are done and we can move on with all the things that need to be happening in real time. But yeah, we're working towards trying to be a more year-round business because we recently moved to California within the last 2 years, and like we hike in the winter because it's too hot in the summer. So we're trying to like start working on reaching the people in the southern states where we do actually hike year-round. So it is a little bit more stable business than just having these, these seasonal ups and downs that we've been experiencing.
Tell me about your journey as an entrepreneur. I mean,
gosh.
I was gonna say, yeah. Tell me, because you
lot of this
on the camera you did up and down, right, of what we were just talking about before, and I feel like that's also like kind of the journey of an entrepreneur as well. So I would imagine maybe you're since 2017 when you created
yeah.
it to now, there's probably been
A
quite a bit of
lot
those
of
ups and downs. So do any of those stick out that would be, maybe worth telling, or there's a story about maybe?
Well, just having to be flexible and being okay with pivoting, like completely different direction if you need to. Because when I first started, what's kind of interesting is that where I am today is where I wanted to be when I first started. Is I wanted to do all the education, I wanted to coach people, I wanted to do all these things, but
Interesting.
nobody knew who I was at the beginning, so they didn't know to trust me that I know what I'm talking about because I've been doing this. So I had to kind of backtrack and do, okay, how do I bring about brand awareness? How do I gain people's trust? How do people understand that, see that I've done what I've done? So when I first started trying to do coaching, it was a disaster because I couldn't get any business. Nobody knew who I was. So we had to start with just let's just get some recipes out, just started as that kind of thing. And then as it went on, it was okay, now people are finding that they need a lot of help with the meal planning. So that's why we created the automated meal planner, because you don't do spreadsheets anymore. It's fully automated. And then COVID hit, so we're all stuck at home. So I pivoted and was like, well, I love to teach. I'm going to do master classes. So I taught
Unreal.
six different master classes. Everybody's stuck at home. So I did those for a while. And then just kind of every year I've been pivoting to, well, what are people needing? What do I like to do? What can I do differently? And that's where I never thought I'd make food for a living. Like that was one thing I never thought I'd ever do. I hated food service as a student. That was my least favorite part of schooling, was food service. And now here I'm going to have my own commercial kitchen.
It's funny how that stuff works out, ain't it? Yeah. Well, when you brought up the pivoting parts, what that reminds me of is problem solving, especially when you're on as through hiking a trail, and you've done, I think you did the PCT, right? And you said the Oregon Coast Trail, maybe some stuff on the CT and all of that stuff. Do you feel like maybe, or how have you brought the mentality of through hiking into your business?
That's the flexibility. It's part of being a thru hiker. You've got to be flexible. Every single day is different. I learned that within the first 2 weeks of my PCT hike, because awesome. I had the whole 5 months planned out to the T, because I'm very type A. I'm very regimented. I'm very organized. I mean, every single day was planned out. I had 150 days worth of food planned out, all bagged up. And
oh my gosh.
I mean, the whole thing was planned. And then 2 weeks into it, it just blew up, because whether or not I had to take an extra 0 day, or I became friends with somebody that was slowing down or speeding up, that kind of thing. So now I don't plan at all for my thru hikes anymore. I just go. So I learned that I know how to plan on the fly. I know how to do that now. So I think that's part of with business, is you just have to be flexible going in. That try something. If it doesn't work, then you got to pivot, try something else. If that works well, then what can I do more of that's also going to do well? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't have any business training at all. So I'm a dietitian. So this has definitely been a huge learning curve with the last few years myself.
Oh yeah. But it's very rewarding, isn't it?
I think back to how miserable I was in my old life. It's that's what's my motivation to keep going, is I can't go back to 100%. Where I was, because I was so miserable that I will work and work and work just to make this work. So I don't have to go back to where I was, because I love what I do. That's why I work as much as I do.
Yeah. It's like people are either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. Right. And I think for me, when I quit my job and got into this, I think that it was away from pain. Mm-hmm. And that continues for me. Just I resonate with that so well. I continue to work super, super hard, because I never want to go back to where I was. I'm just trying to move away from that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned the Oregon Coast Trail. I used to live in Oregon, and that trail kind of went about an hour away from where I was, actually, in McMinnville in the valley there. Tell me a little bit about that trail. That seems like a very, I know we're kind of going a little bit off of the foods and stuff, but I'm really curious, what were your thoughts on the Oregon Coast Trail?
I don't recommend it as a through hike. Keep it as a day hike.
Yeah.
There's way too much road walking. I would definitely, there's beautiful sections, but then you have to spend so much. I've forgotten. I did in 2018. I've forgotten what the percentage breakdown is, but I would say almost probably 2/3 of it's road walking. And it's not safe road walking. There aren't shoulders, or you're out in the middle of nowhere where if something were to happen to you, nobody would know. Those kind of things. And then also I hike single by myself. So it was actually, I had kind of a run-in with quite a few people, men.
I would imagine. The coast is kind of sketch.
It was sketchy.
It's a little sketchy out there. There's some weird, there's some weirdos out there.
And the way the hike is set up is the beach is private. So it's private property. You can't sleep in people's, essentially their backyards. Right. So you have to hike from campground to campground. And the way it is it's great for backpackers because they call it hike a bike, I think is what it's called, where you just walk in, you set up your tent, you can keep going. But that's also for people that are homeless, I guess you could say. They can
Yeah.
walk into and set up a tent. So what I was finding is that I was running into those people that were just there to be, and
Yeah.
it was really uncomfortable because I had like a lot of really uncomfortable sexual comments towards me and that kind of thing. So there were actually sometimes,
Really?
yeah, it was really uncomfortable. And I'm usually not
Wow.
scared of things, but I would go to the
Right.
camp host and be like, can I at least like go hang out with another family or something? Because this is really uncomfortable for me. So
How
yeah.
how did you end up like how did you push through that whole thing to complete the trail? You're like, "Hey, that," cuz your comment of, "Hey, this should be like a day hike," but you were actually on it for how long?
28 days, I think is how long it took
Yeah,
me.
so you were there for a month.
Yeah.
Like, how did you what was the driving force for you to complete that?
I don't give up easy.
I
It's one
love
of
it.
those that at the time, I had gotten injured on the PCT and couldn't finish. I tried the
Mhm.
AT, got injured, couldn't finish. I was like, the Oregon coast, I'm like, I'm finishing. Like, I'm going to push through
Got
this.
it.
I'm healthy, like all those kind of things. So it was like, it sucks. I'll never do this again, but I'm going to push through just so I can finish
Right.
something. Yeah,
Okay.
and it was also, I use all my trips as a trail testing for something. So that's when I was trail testing, cold soaking the whole trip. So I was like, I need to stick this out and see like what if I can do this or not kind of thing. But I'll never
Yeah.
do it again. And I don't recommend it as a through hike either. Like if you do the the day sections that are beautiful, but skip all the road walking in between.
I love that. Yeah. Everybody kind of gives me crap that lives in Oregon, but like I am not a big fan of the Oregon coast for whatever reason. It's just like so thick and like green. And it's like a green tunnel to me. And I'm just like, which is why I moved to like the high desert now. And I love it. Like I love being able to see far away
Right.
and, you can actually see the sky. It's like, oh my gosh, it's great. But anyway, so to kind of wrap it up here, what is I know you're super passionate about Backcountry Foodie, like with every single thing that you're doing in there, and it definitely shows. What is your what's your favorite service that you guys provide? Is it the resupply? Is it the education? Or, yeah, what is the favorite one that you have?
Oh gosh. Would say it had been the education, but now I think I really enjoy the resupply part
Really?
because I'm really making their experience that much easier. And I know what
Hmm.
it's like to be able to take a zero and I love the organization part. I love the being in touch with, like, I actually miss my hikers. I got to know them so well over 6 months that, like, hey,
100%.
like, we're friends now, because I'm in touch
Yeah,
with you
yeah,
so often.
yeah.
I think I really love the resupply part of it. Is that it's just a combination of everything, and then too, I still get to do the education because I would kind of chime in like, "You're looking a little thin. Like, can I put some more food in your box?"
Sure.
That kind of
Right.
thing. So yeah, I think
Wow.
that's probably what my favorite is right now. But I've
Yeah.
enjoyed all of it. I mean, there's just different parts of it that I enjoy for different reasons.
Yeah, and it's probably like you almost maintain that connection with the trail in some
Mhm.
way.
Right.
It's kind of like exactly like a trail angel, but like I said, you're like the
I'm
ultimate
like the
trail
ultimate
angel
trail mom.
slash mom. Yeah, you are. You're like, it's like I could see your new Instagram handle, ultimate trail mom or something. It's like I love it. So well, cool. So how can people catch up with you and find all of your services? Where would you point them to?
So website's backcountryfoodie.com, and then you can just search Backcountry Foodie everywhere else on Instagram, Facebook. And we have a YouTube channel that and we didn't talk about actually. We lived in a van for 2.5 years traveling around.
What?
Yeah. So our YouTube videos are actually from filming about nutrition while traveling in a van. We haven't done since we moved
Oh
back
my
into a
gosh.
house that we haven't done new videos, but they are out there. And then yeah, so just Google Backcountry Foodie and you'll find me.
Well, hold on. So you lived in a van for two. Well, okay. Now we got to go down this whole road. So you lived in a van for 2 years, and so you guys were. It sounds like you guys were doing YouTube videos and just kind of showing like, hey, here's how we eat healthy on in the van. Still, is that
It was
kind of what I'm
all
getting
back.
at?
My husband got to the position where I was. He was miserable with his job, all those he kind of had the day where I'm done, I'm out. What are we going to do next? So his background is in project management and commercial construction. So he had or has actually all the business knowledge that I was lacking at the time. So that's kind of what we did is we joined forces and because I was stuck with foodie. This was back in 2019 is that I had gotten to a point where I didn't know how to get past. I didn't have that business knowledge. So it was
Yeah.
like, we're going to join forces. I know how to do X, Y, Z. I will do this for you. You're going to build this part of the business. We're going to travel around the country because we didn't know where home was. We lived in Seattle at the time. We're like, well, we can't stay here anymore. Like, we're tired of here. Let's go figure out where is home. So that's what we did. We built out a van from scratch and built out Foodie from scratch. He built out the website from scratch. and traveled all over 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, so you guys are still in business together then, too?
No, he
No?
has since kind of like, I've had enough of food. I miss my old career. So he's actually gone back to his old career. And now it's just, I'm in charge of Foodie, but I took all those things he taught me. So now I know how to manage all the things that I didn't know how to do
Got
before.
it. Okay. So it was almost like in 2019, you were kind of at this level where you couldn't break. It was
right.
it was difficult to break through to that next step in business. And then
Right.
you kind of joined forces and then you were able to break through at that time.
Right.
And now you have the skills to do it on your own. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
or
so
hired
cool.
somebody else to do it for me now. So-
Yeah, exactly. Right. Wow. Cool. Well, fascinating story. This has been such a great podcast, and I'm so stoked for everybody to listen to this. I mean, like I said, I just, food can be medicine, right? And it can also be a performance enhancer, or if you don't have it, a decreaser in some ways, right? And so it's
Right.
like just it's a very important part of my life to eat healthy, and I hope that I get a lot of requests from people saying like, hey, how, what are some ways to eat healthier on trail and this and that, and I try to help them, but I think this podcast episode is going to have a lot of great information for them. So I thank you for coming on,
Sure.
and it was great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.